Didn't the other kids tell you not to come here? Go back before it's too late!
At the heart of horror, there has always been more than spooks and scares.
Sometimes, it's not what you see, but what you hear.
Welcome to Sound Scary.
Each week, we talk to the artists, the musicians, the fans, the people who haunt the shadowy corners of your mind.
Join us as we delve into the deepest,
Darkest.
and most unforgettable earscapes.
Welcome
To Sound Scary.
Welcome to another episode of Sound Scary Quarantine Edition. I'm your host, Ryan Cultrera, and today I'm super excited to talk to our guests. But first, I'm going to pass it over to my co-host.
Yes, you know what, I am too. And again, I say it all the time, I love our guests. I love our guests so much. But this one's real special because I happen to absolutely adore the Conjuring movies. And there's a new one coming out called The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. And we're so honored to have the director of that film right in the house with us, Michael Chaves. Thank you so much for joining us. It's amazing to have you on.
Thank you, guys. I am so excited to be here and just so excited to talk to you guys and talk Conjuring.
Yeah. Well, okay. So when I first saw the opening with you over at the lot, I was blown away. I've seen the movie. I'm blown away. I really, really, truly enjoyed this. It's shocking to me how complicated it must be to maneuver through an already established world, and you did it. You did this really unique and really refreshing take on the Warrens. How do you feel? I mean, now that's happening and now that people are starting to see it, how are you feeling about it?
Oh, I feel great. Honestly, it's been just a huge journey. And, without a doubt, taking over the Conjuring, main franchise, I mean, these are big shoes to fill. I think I said it to you. I mean, this is a franchise that was started by James, James Wan, master of horror. I'm a huge fan of his, and, honestly, coming into it, it was a mix of, just like the movie, it was both thrilling and terrifying, and from the moment we first started talking about it, I was like, it was a mix of like, oh my God, I might be directing the third Conjuring. And then also, just like all the fans, wait, James Wan isn't directing the third Conjuring? So it's funny, I got that so much like on social media, and just so much like, and without a doubt, I mean, like, I know the hesitation, I know the fear, especially when you have something that, a series that you love, and especially a series that, has been so imprinted, by just, one director and one kind of, honestly, like, visionary guy. I think that, from the very beginning with it, the thing that gave me the most hope and excitement about it is that it was going to be a departure that, in a lot of ways there, from the very beginning, this was going to be more like a supernatural thriller. This was going to be, we kind of joked around in the beginning, I think just because both James and I love Seven, we were like, it's going to be 7 for The Conjuring.
Yeah.
And, that was like one of the things that, the idea that we were going to be taking them out of the haunted house, blowing the doors off the haunted house, and, taking them into different places. And I think that was something that, I realized, I'll have a chance to kind of, create, scares and experiences that are totally different. And, that's what I really looked forward to the most, going into it. And I think it's also the thing that people really have responded to is, I think that, we all I think the reason that the franchise kind of, exists is because we all fell in love with that first movie. And in a way that has been both, a blessing and a burden. And I think it's what it is that, I think up to this point, there's just the expectation that if you're watching a Conjuring movie, it needs to be a haunted house story. Yeah. And we kind of like deliver that in a way within those kind of first, 11 minutes that you saw. Our joke as we were developing it is, this is going to be Conjuring 2.5. We're going to pack in an entire Conjuring movie into like the opening, and then it's going to go horribly wrong. It'll be the Conjuring movie where the Warrens fail, where everything goes wrong and their decisions were wrong, and they and there's something about that I loved, and even especially in the kind of the broader kind of stroke of the story, that this is, all the Conjuring movies are marketed as their darkest case, but this really is their darkest case. I mean, this has a real murder. This has a real tragedy at the center of it. I mean, you can go to Wikipedia and find out how it ended up with Arnie. I mean, there's, it's hard to like to get, again, because the Warrens and the Conjuring experience is so much built around this, like, it's always a happy ending. They always get it right, and there's no victims. Everyone's happy. The only thing that we maybe we have a dead dog and a couple dead birds, but everything's okay, And this, it's not okay, and especially in the world in the year that we just came out of, I think it's important to be able to tell stories where things go wrong and things don't make sense, and you got to try and make sense with them, out of them. And I think that, of course, we had no idea that this past year was coming before as we started making the movie.
Yeah.
But like telling those stories, I think that, and that take on it, I thought that was like really, that was what I got really excited about when we went into, into making it. And I think that's what people responded to, is like all of a sudden, like, oh my God, I was worried this wasn't going to feel like a classic Conjuring movie, but that's actually been the greatest blessing, is that it's actually been able to go into these uncharted territories and feel different while still having the heart and soul of the Warrens, and and enough of the kind of the Conjuring scares to kind of keep everyone happy.
Oh, for sure. And you mentioned this coming out in a pandemic year. Obviously this hit a few delays for release. Did you find that kind of extended time in the editorial room with these delays kind of changed and shifted your film in any way?
It did to a degree. I mean, not that significantly. We were going to go back for additional photography right as the pandemic hit. Like, we had, the sets were built, everything was ready. And the pandemic hit, we put it on hold, everybody's schedule got screwed up. So we were waiting the entire pandemic. So we had a plan for what we were going to do, and we just kind of sat on it. And, there was probably some like minor developments over the course of that time, and, minor kind of, tweaks on some scares, but the core story was already there. It's funny. I'd love to do another podcast, like post like full spoilers, to kind of talk about how those kind of things developed. But I guess to answer your question, it didn't give us like a fundamental kind of shift. We already kind of knew what we were going to do. It just delayed the movie. Honestly, that was the biggest thing. And then unfortunately, it delayed it to the point where we were scrambling to finish, to cut what we shot. And so it was just a race to the finish at the end.
Oh, wow.
That always just kind of feels insane when you're sitting around for a year and then you basically have like a month to finish the movie, which, definitely was a race.
Oh, that's wild.
Wow. Well, and now when we talked previously, we talked about the aspect of staying with James Wan's vision and keeping it practical. And I watched the film again, and that opening sequence, man, that possession. Now, I don't know if I've told Ryan this, but Ryan, that most of that's not CGI. I want Michael to talk about stuff? That. That is not CGI, buddy.
Oh, man. That was like on my question list, because like that contortion is so funky and like impactful, and you do it twice throughout the film. No big spoilers, but like, yeah, just the contortion elements in this, that was practical.
All practical. Yeah. So that's Emerald Wolf. She's this,
oh my God,
this 12-year-old contortionist. Everything she did there's nothing that was sped up. There was nothing, and it was funny because we even played with speeding some of the stuff up, but I was like, no, it is like, it should all be like exactly how it came into the camera.
Man.
The only visual effect is we put Julian's face on her body, but like her doing that kind of that thing twist, like into, as she's like, he's, you know, looking at his sister, that's all in camera. That was her doing that. Her like, which, you know, made it to the trailers and is kind of like the signature thing, that kind of double bend snap. That was all in camera. There was no wires. That was like, also, that was the speed she did it at. And it was funny because we had rehearsed it at a slower speed. It was going to be this kind of like, you know, really kind of like creepy, aching, like, you know, back bend into that. And we did a few takes and I was like, Emerald, can you give me like an alternate, or like, what else can you do? And she's like, I could do it really fast. And she did it at the speed you see it in the movie. And everyone on set, and that was like a rehearsal, everyone on set was like, you could hear them like, oh my God, like there was a chill that came through the room. So I was like, that's going to be the one, we're going to do that. But yeah, it was all in camera. And I mean, she's just amazing. She's super talented. And wow. I think that you can, I don't know, it's, you know, I wonder if, because you probably could have done that CG, and you could have gotten a digital double, you know, to do it. And we just didn't even kind of open that door. I mean, I think it was honestly, it was just more fun doing it this way. And, you know, I got to give a lot of the credit to, you know, it's the world that James set up, where it's like, it's, you know, it's a universe that kind of, there's the expectation and the value of practical effects. And I think so much so that, you know, people even have an allergy to it, where like in, you know, The Crooked Man, all in camera, but then there was this kind of strange uproar online that was like, oh no, that's CG and we reject that. That doesn't, like, you know, it was just funny how that was, where, I mean, that was a feat. I mean, The Crooked Man is amazing that's all in camera. So yeah, credit goes to, you know, James for setting it up, and the New Line for continuing that tradition and supporting it. Because I'm sure there's a lot of studios that would just say, you know, why waste the time? Why do it? And it's just, the answer is it's more fun.
That's amazing. You know, viewers can feel it in their core, I feel. When something is done for real, you can just tell in a guttural level as an audience. So like, kudos for keeping that practical.
Oh yeah, thanks.
What are some of the other challenges? I obviously, you know, choosing to go the more practical effect with the possession and getting the contortionist. What were some of the more challenging story arc structures? What was problematic for you that you kind of had to jump in and figure out how to do? Because there's some really interesting things and some interesting chances you take here, which I really liked. But it seems like it was a little challenging to kind of go this route.
I think that the biggest, most obvious, you know, thing that I, you know, was a trick to navigate was the actual murder. And, you know, being respectful about that and truthful, and while still making it thrilling. And, you know, I think everybody was, you know, everyone was excited about this. Like, this case was, you know, definitely, I think that, you know, there's something kind of like very sticky about it, and very, you can see as like, and you can see as the marketing campaign plays out, is, you know, going on, you know, taking the devil on trial, you know, taking your kind of this kind of almost faith on trial, like that is really captivating to a lot of people. So from the very beginning, everyone was like, this, you know, the studio and James and the whole team was really excited about that. I think we were also equally and even more so concerned and even terrified on how do we handle the murder? You know, how do we, you know, because we're telling the story of the Warrens first and foremost, and we need to honor that and what they believe and what they experience. And then we're also telling the story of Arnie, who is a man who went to trial for murder. And, you know, how do we, you know, there's a real victim in it, and how do we treat it respectfully, and how do we handle that? And, you know, that was something that, you know, even kind of how we depict the murder. The murder was, you know, there's some things that are kind of very close to what happened. And then there's other things that we just chose to leave out because it made our victim look worse or bad, or, you know, there's things, I think it was, you know, so much of that. And it's, you know, it's not really the most interesting of, like, you know, kind of behind the scenes horror talk, but it was honestly the thing that kind of would keep me up at night. It's just like, you know, I want to make an awesome Conjuring movie. I want to deliver for the fans. I also want to be respectful of the truth and the true victim in the story. And, you know, how do you navigate that? Because I think that what's exciting and scary is, you know, up to this point with the Conjuring movies, and a lot of supernatural movies is you can kind of go into it and you can playfully have that thought experiment about your own personal beliefs. And I think I told you this, James, when we first we sat down, is I grew up Catholic, and I have my own set of beliefs. I'm not practicing anymore, but you kind of go into these movies like kind of playfully thinking like maybe it was real, maybe it wasn't real, what part was real. But all of a sudden, when you have a real victim, a man on trial, his life is hanging in the balance, I think that those questions start to have a lot more weight. And even when people have asked me, what do I really believe about this case, I think it's not just, I can't playfully entertain an answer. I have to be very thoughtful in what I say. And I think also just navigating that in the movie was one of the biggest tricks.
I really think you did strike a balance in this between like the elements we expect of a Conjuring film and respecting the people involved. Like in your prep work for this film, were you able to talk with any of the real people who were a part of this?
I didn't actually get to. Our writer, DLJ, David Leslie Johnson, did a bunch of interviews with Arnie and Debbie, and he went through transcripts and both of the accounts of the murder and then also the accounts of the exorcism. And and there's things that were really fascinating, extraordinary things that didn't even make it into the movie. And it was kind of it's like a balance. It's funny because I think a lot of times you just assume that it's like we're going to take a very loose story and we're going to just kind of scare it up and we're going to kind of come up with these kind of fantastic things to put into it. But then there's there was everyone who was present at the exorcism, including the priests, say that David levitated a foot off the table. And that was something that was it's boring, but I was like, I don't know if we're going to do levitation. I think we could do something a little bit more visceral and unsettling, because I think levitation is a little like we've seen it before, and so it's things like that. There's so many of those little details that we actually were extraordinary that didn't make it into the movie, but just because of a creative choice.
Now, I love that, and I love the fact that we talked when we spoke about The Exorcist. There are a few moments that you definitely, I get the homage thing, especially that opening shot.
There was a visual callback in there. I was like,
just so cool. Were there other, how, as a filmmaker, do you like to kind of take those moments of movies that have inspired you and kind of pay a little tribute to them?
Yeah, without a doubt. Obviously, this movie, I think that I think all the Conjuring movies are these love letters to horror. I think it's a conversation within the genre, and to the genre. And, so I think that, with this, definitely I wanted to wear some of it on my sleeve. We talked about, the Nightmare influences, the Nightmare on Elm Street 4 influences. And, I think that was something that you can't do a waterbed scare without kind of looking at that movie. And so I think that there was kind of a lot of little bits like that where I was like, I think it's, it's fun to have that conversation. I think it's a conversation, within, almost between the movies themselves, and, and also of course with fans,
That's definitely something I noticed in this film is a very deep kind of attention to detail too, is, for example, the color contrasts you use between the sepia tones with the Warrens and blue tints during some of the exorcisms. Could you kind of go into the process of choosing your aesthetic for this film?
Yeah, a lot of it was, it's a good question. Yeah, I think that, I wanted to use color in a really targeted way. And I also wanted to use light in a really targeted way. So it would, it would mean something, either specifically, literally, or it would mean something, emotionally. And, without a doubt, there's, red is one of the recurring, colors in the movie. And, it's definitely associated with the curse. Also just, I love interactive lighting. I love moving lighting. as simple as like, I love it when lights move through the frame. There's something about it, like, whether it's car lights or whatever it is. And I think that, I wanted to kind of play it almost like music, where you're kind of like, you're using it in a really targeted way, and there's, the most kind of obvious dramatic point was on the, in the forest where she, connects to the past event, and there's that dramatic lighting change, and that was all in camera. There was no visual effects there.
Really?
And that was, we shot it at night, and we got a giant light and we put it on a techno crane and track, and we lit it to look like day. And we're kind of, shooting down, and then we just kind of set the sun. We basically move that light dramatically through the woods, and it gives this effect like, the sun is setting. And, I just thought like, one, I just love to see lights move, but I thought that there was something really captivating about that, where you just kind of, you could feel this transition, as she's kind of going into this other place. And it, there was also like other moments where we used it where, like when they're in the motel, and like, I really loved the, there's a little bit of like some Hitchcock references. Of course, the obvious one is like, with Psycho in the very beginning with the shower, and then Mother in the window. But then there's other kind of more subtle Hitchcock references with a little bit of like Vertigo and a little bit of like North by Northwest. And, in the motel, I love the idea of just, injecting green into the window, to kind of give this, like, her kind of connection, to the past, to that kind of that other side. And then the other thing I wanted to play with is just like those kind of car lights as they're going by. And as she's kind of telling her story, where I think we toyed with the idea of like flashing back to the exorcism as she's kind of recalling back what happened in the exorcism. Mm-hmm. But I think that was a moment where I just thought like, it would be cooler if we just feel these moving lights, these little flickers of light, as almost like it's like her memory is kind of sweeping through the room. And then we're on Ed as he's kind of like listening, and then the kind of the lights pass. And I was just like, I just thought that really conveyed that feeling of memory, where it's just it kind of surges and passes, but it's not as explicit. Like, you're listening to her tell the story, like you experienced it just like they did. So you can have your own memory that kind of, comes back.
One of the things you said a few minutes ago, and I think I do want to talk about it, is I think why these, we did talk a little bit about this, but why I think people love the Conjuring movies, not just that they're horror, it's a love story. These are all love stories. And this is in a way even more of a love story, because they face some challenges with their relationship here without giving things away. Does that feel different approaching that kind of the more romantic or loving or caring or the empathetic or the sympathetic beautiful moments that you find between Vera and Patrick, as opposed to delving into the Satanism and horror and all that fun stuff?
I think it's, you got to have one with the other. I think that's why these, the series endures. And I think that's one of the reasons that we love the Warrens, is like, we love them. We love going on this journey with them. We love being scared with them. It's, the more that we love them, the more we can get scared, the darker we can go, the more unsettling their cases can be. I think it's, they exist together. I think that they're, if you look back in the first Conjuring, they had a great relationship and a loving relationship. And I think that it's, all of, as the series developed, I think you just see that, stronger and stronger. And I think it's a testament to the chemistry between Patrick and Vera, which is incredible. Mm. And I can say that it's totally legit. They're, we all experience it as we watch the movie. On set, they have got just the most awesome friendship. They have got so much of this great platonic love, this great friendship. They're very different actors. They approach scenes very differently, but they have a tremendous respect for each other. Their families are friends, and like, it just like, they feel like family. And I think that is, something that, has really supercharged the series, and really makes their love feel even more so legitimate. Especially you see the behind the scenes, and it's like, they're just like, they're the bestest of friends. Yeah, and in terms of like, this, managing that with a story, I think, as I was kind of struggling to crack this case, you know, like as if I solved it myself. But like it's struggling to like figure out like what's my angle, what's my belief, what do I do? You know, ultimately, you know, I kind of came to the thinking that, you know, these are always stories about faith and they're always stories about love. And I think sometimes the story of faith is not so much the story about our faith in God, but it's the faith that we put in each other. It's the faith that we put in the people that we love and the people we choose to be with. And I think that this movie tells that story both with the Warrens, you know, and their enduring love and the persistence of their love, even through these, you know, we put them through the ringer, you know what happens. And then also, you know, their kind of their mirror couple, the mirror story of Arnie and Debbie. And, you know, they remained married up until a few weeks ago when she just passed away from cancer. She, you know, just coincidentally, you know, she just passed. And she was there, you know, they were together through that exorcism. They were there through his, you know, claimed possession, through the murder, through the trial, through him being in jail. Spoiler alert, sorry guys. And, you know, all the way, and they stayed together. I mean, I think that is one of the greatest testaments of faith is, you know, that they believed in each other and believed in that experience. And I think it's, you know, I don't know. It's like as I kind of went into the story, I was kind of, you know, we live in such like a, you know, there's no gray areas in, you know, in our society anymore. It's either black or white. You're either wrong or right. And like, and everyone believes they are right. And no one is open to a more nuanced, complex answer. And that's what I liked about, you know, at least that's where I thought the opportunity here is like, you know, we're all going to have a different opinion about what happened. We're all going to have a different interpretation from that. But, you know, the truth and what you can't deny is that, you know, their love persisted and they believed in each other. And that in itself, you know, as we see it in them, we see it in the Warrens. I mean, that's a powerful message. That's a powerful story.
Now, earlier in our interview, you were kind of talking a little bit about your personal influences, you know, injecting some Nightmare on Elm Street in there, some Exorcist. I kind of want to dive into you as a horror fan and as a director. Like, growing up, kind of what films influenced you to pursue horror films?
You know, I think honestly, like, you know, a lot of like, you know, VHS 80s, you know, horror movies, and, you know, starting with Nightmare. And, you know, what's crazy is it's like, it might've been the third or fourth one was the first one that I actually saw. And then, you know, I went back through the series and, you know, and I enjoy all of those, you know, and that they, you know, it's funny. And I think it was before we started, we were talking about New Nightmare and just like, you know, how much fun that was. And I mean, honestly, that's a great series, and it really doesn't get the respect that I think, because it may have hung out a little bit too long. It may have been just, you know, there may have been a couple movies that, you know, have gotten kind of, you know, that if you go back to the first one, I mean, it's an amazing idea. It's a really powerful idea, and you can see there's like the resonance in, you know, beyond just horror movies, just in I can see echoes of it in Inception. I'm like, you know, I feel like there's so much. I mean, honestly, the rotating room. I mean, Nolan is like shamelessly ripping off Wes Craven.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, it's like the dream story. I mean, so much about that. I mean, and you know, I just think that had a really powerful effect on me. I think that there was, you know, and I think it still does. You know, I think after that, you know, I think about, you know, Poltergeist had a big impact, and I think one of my favorites, and still is to this day, is Aliens. I think Aliens is just so rock solid awesome. It is, you know, I love sci-fi and I love horror, and it is this beautiful blend of the two. It is, the Space Marines are so awesome. That was the first time I ever heard of Space Marines, and I always whatever. Now Space Marines, it's like, you have video games, it's like, you know, everything. It's like Space Marines are everywhere. But that was like honestly the first time I ever heard of Space Marines. The power loader sequence, there's so many sequences in that are so rock solid and just really fantastic. And at the core, what a great emotional story of just, you know, a mother and a daughter. I mean, essentially, you know, with you know, I just think that is, you know, I love that movie. I think it's just, it's an absolute beast, rock solid. I'll sometimes just like watch clips of it, like when I'm working out, just to get all fired up. Like, just because, you know, I love it. I think it's just great. I sound like a maniac now talking like that, but I don't know what, you know, the other things, you know, I think going into, of course, love Scream, love The Others. I think The Others, without a doubt, and The Orphanage. There's a big influence in The Conjuring. In going back to The Changeling. I wasn't a huge Changeling fan. I came to that actually after The Conjuring. But I see those similarities, and I see that I do love that kind of atmospheric brand of horror that I don't know, it's what I love about horror is it's such a big tent. There's so much that can really fit in it, and even between Aliens, Nightmare, Conjuring, I mean, it's these are vastly different experiences, vastly different movies, and they kind of have different things that they work, but it's they're all great thrill rides. I think that's I think that's one of the things I always just come back to is they're great. I mean, even though it's not classically considered a horror movie, I love Jurassic Park. You remember seeing that and Terminator 2 with my dad in theaters, and that had a big impact on me. And I was just it's the thrill ride nature that you get out of a horror movie is something I really love. And, I think that's honestly why, as we're getting this really, movies are kind of in this kind of existential, or the theatrical experience is in this existential crisis. I think that's why horror movies are really kind of coming to the forefront, and you see so much with them is just they work in this fundamental level.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing as you're talking about your favorite movies, and I agree with a lot of those. Although The Changeling, give another chance. It's an amazing movie.
Oh no, I love The Changeling.
Okay,
I had not seen it before. Just as the way things had evolved.
You scared me, Michael. You scared me.
I love it. No, it's a masterpiece. It's a full-on masterpiece. Totally. I just hadn't seen it before I saw The Conjuring, which I'm a little bit embarrassed. It's kind of come to certain movies and series kind of out of order. I think that was just the way I came.
Well, yeah. I was wondering, does growing up Catholic, I kind of grew up pretty much nothing. Growing up Catholic, does that kind of, I don't know, color your shading of the movies you want, what scares you, because I think we are all kind of, I don't know, freaked out by things that freaked us out as children. Did that affect in any way your love of horror?
I think to a degree. I think it's one of the reasons that I don't know if I'm just more a believer. It's funny because I'm both a skeptic and a true believer. I go back and forth where I sometimes I feel like I'm a man of science. I'm very analytical. I reject any of that mumbo jumbo. But then sometimes I'm the most I want to believe.
Yeah. Well, you need to, and so this show, Sound Scary, was started as a, we started on a paranormal loving channel. Ryan and I have done ghost hunts. We've done several actually, and we've caught some really strange things. Have you ever done anything like that? Have you ever been on a ghost hunt?
I have not been on a ghost hunt. Gotta go, guys.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Let's go find a ghost house.
You're formally invited.
Okay, here's the deal. When things start settling and when you can talk about this film, let's do a special episode of this with you. We'll do a ghost hunt. We'll mix it all up.
Let's do it. I'm easily scared. I think that's one of the things. It should be warned. I will be screaming like a girl.
Perfect. I love it.
Edit some of that stuff out. I could do another take with a more measured response, but I will be the first one screaming.
Awesome.
Oh, I love it.
It makes for good content.
It's funny. Is it difficult kind of doing press and kind of going in, I got to talk about the movie, but you can't talk a lot about this film. I mean, it would give away so much. Is that kind of that seems like a bit of a problematic thing, a nice problem to have, albeit, but it seems like problematic.
Thankfully, none of the interviews ever go this long. I think we're in uncharted territory. You're in my longest interview.
We're honored.
So I'm going to start spilling my guts. I'm going to get into dangerous territory. It's interesting. I feel like there is so many interesting things to talk about with the movie that we haven't really gotten into. I haven't had to dodge too many questions. Honestly, wherever I always feel like there's an artful dodge, or I'm always trying to kind of choose my words wisely, is when it actually comes to the murder and my belief of what happened, and but we never really also I think up to this point not many people had seen the movie, so we were kind of working off of like a lot of the questions were just the top line, the case, what's it like to work with Patrick and Vera, which was easy. I mean, I think that I'm excited. I've seen the movie twice in theaters with in where we tested it, and it was really fun to see, and it was really fun to just see people's, because you're going in. I think that was actually the best opportunity is you have fans that are going in with an expectation and thinking they know what's going to happen, and as things take their turns and as things evolve, it was really fun to like feel that in the theater, to actually just like to feel like you could hear people making like sounds, like they were like like they were kind of getting ahead of things, and it was like, oh yes. And it was, what I loved is it's like there's moments in there which are unlike anything in a Conjuring movie, and there's even a couple scenes, like there's one scene in particular where was always people's favorite scene, and we actually I think there was like a South American film festival where New Line actually played the scene as a tease, and it never got out anywhere else. And it was late in the movie, but we stopped doing it because when you just show that one scene, people are like, wait a second, this is so different. They would almost reject it. Yeah. But because we were kind of taking these baby steps, like kind of into this uncharted territory, that like when you get to it in the when you're actually watching the movie, I think people are really like excited for it. And I think that that was because it's a long way of saying, like a lot of times the trailer will just kind of give away all the cool stuff. But I was so happy when I saw those trailers, and I was like, this is great that they're not even digging into, one of the scenes that tested the highest, the scenes that people love the most, isn't even anywhere in the trailer. So I think that just like that sense of surprise, I think was really, really fun.
And you had mentioned before we started the interview that you're a big movie trailer guy. And, that's such an important thing, I feel, is not giving away too much. And the trailer for this movie, I personally feel, is pretty good. I remember being at the theater for the first time. They showed it before Mortal Kombat. And the second, people realized it was a Conjuring movie, I heard someone go, ooh. Like, you guys just have this built-in aura about your films. But kind of touching on trailers a little bit more, what are some that you personally love? Because you told me that you keep a playlist. What are some of the trailers that really stuck with you?
Let me think about that. Honestly, I think we have an awesome trailer. I'm really proud of it. I think that the team behind it did a really great job. And I think also in just doing something that captures the experience and gets fans excited, but also, as I said, doesn't give away some of the coolest stuff in the movie. There was literally a scene that everyone was like, we have to, it's just, honestly, it's like this one shot that everyone was like, we got to put that in the trailer. And I'm so glad it didn't go in the trailer, because it would have been a huge, potential spoiler. Yeah, long-winded way of saying, I mean, honestly, I think trailers are, I love trailers. I'm a big movie fan. I'm a big movie nerd, as you guys are getting a sense of with, my YouTube, trailer list. And I think trailers.
Sorry to call you out there.
Dude, honestly, I think trailers are like this essential part of the storytelling process. I think that they're actually in a way, they're almost like the first act of the movie. And, it's because, love them or hate them, they exist in our culture. That's our first kind of glimpse at the story, our first glimpse of the storytelling. And I think that filmmakers need to embrace it and need to kind of acknowledge that is what audiences are coming into the movie with. So if you're seeing the trailer and you've seen the movie and you are basically waiting for an hour to catch up with the trailer, you're going to be a very frustrated audience member. And I think that, acknowledging that, because I know that I've had that experience. I'm like, okay, when are we going to get to the scene? Okay, I got it. When are we going to get to, you get frustrated because you've been spoiled by the trailer. And I think that, part of that is, I mean, at the point that the trailer gets made, it is, a little bit of the, hopefully the trailer company is being respectful and, not telling too much of the story. But I think that there is a little bit of a dance there. And, in an ideal world, it'd be awesome if we could make the trailers like in parallel to the movie so that they actually, they give you that like that first glimpse or that kind of act zero, glimpse at the movie, before it's even started. Because I think that, that's, before this I was, directing TV commercials and, I think advertising and, it really, there is a storytelling opportunity there. And I think that we can start telling stories earlier in the trailers and kind of like seeding ideas and then playing with expectations. And I think that there's probably opportunities that haven't even been tapped in yet, where you get a better collaboration with these, trailer companies. And that's a long-winded way of, long-winded answer about trailers. In terms of my favorite trailers, it's a long list, and there's, it doesn't go back that deep because trailers age pretty quickly. Honestly, one of the oldest trailers that I have on my list that I go back to all the time is the Suicide Squad trailer. And I'm blanking on exactly what, and I've seen it a million times, but like, I think that's just a great testament for, there was a lot of great trailer work in that. I think the movie's a solid movie. It's an imperfect movie. A lot of people like to tear that movie down. The trailers were really amazing in capturing this kind of spirit of the movie. I think that's, it always just impressed me. And especially like having seen the movie and then kind of going back to it, there was this great promise. And, I don't know. I think that is so much of the movie and the success of the movie gets defined in that opening weekend. When the movie is first released, it, basically within the first day, your judgment has been sealed. Like they know if you're going to be a success or not. And which kind of stinks because there used to be a time when, movies would play long, like they'd be in theaters for months and months. And then you'd have discoveries. And like, this is like back in like the Miramax days and where there would be like, or the independent, I guess I can't call them Miramax days, but the independent movie days of the like 90s and early 2000s where you would have movies that would get discovered and, they would evolve. But now it's like, it's all on that first weekend that's really defined by that first day. And you either work or you don't, you're a success or you don't, and then you disappear because the next movie's coming in hot the next weekend. And it's so jam-packed that you don't really get those great discoveries. And so it just comes back to the trailer. You better have a really good trailer. You better have stuff that like, people are really excited to see. And yeah.
I want to jump in on the trailer thing because I'm going to comment on a couple of trailers, not only your film, but The Quiet Place 2, which I just saw and I can talk about because it's open. What they both do is they both tell a lot of the beginning of the story, a lot of it, and they don't give anything away. With both films, I walked in surprised as what I was about to see. With The Conjuring 3, I was like, oh shit, they're going there? Oh my God. I had no expectation of that. And it's even, being a press person, I don't know how much you were involved, Michael. Like, I had a woman come to my door with a black rose, delivering a black rose for this movie a couple weeks ago. I had no idea what was going on. It was weird. And I love that. But I love how movies can do that. A good trailer doesn't need to give the whole movie away. A good trailer needs to just take a little sliver of it. And that's how you get people involved. I always look at the Blair Witch Project. Like, literally, just that first trailer that they released is just, oh my God. Very creepy, unnerving. You don't know what's going on. I love that. I miss that. I wish we did that more often.
Yeah, it is such a dance, because I think everybody, I think everybody loves that as an ideal, behind the scenes, fans, like everybody, everybody loves like, the idea of holding back and just like hoping that audiences will be, will want to come. But I don't know, it's just a balance. I'm glad that it's, there's such a great marketing team, at Warner Brothers that, they have so much, expertise and just smarts in terms of, and just really experience. I mean, they're like, honestly, it's the part of filmmaking that you never like really think about, but they are telling the movie, they're telling the story just as much as you are, and they are getting the word out and shaping the experience. It is funny. They did they sent the occultist with a rose to my door also. But I was like, please just leave the rose. I have two little kids, two very young kids. We're gonna get freaked out if I open the door and there's some creepy woman here.
Oh man.
So, but yeah, no, I think that it is tricky. Yeah. And, I'm excited for, it's like, you can't really talk about the competition. It seems like sometimes, but like, I'm excited for Quiet Place too. I'm excited for like I was looking at the lineup of all the movies coming out this summer and and there's a ton of horror movies. And I'm like, I love this. I am so happy to see like, I can't wait to see Escape Room 2. That looks awesome.
Me too.
I love the first one. I was like, this is going to be great.
It was a pleasant surprise. So I wanted to kind of get back into the true elements of the film, specifically how this and the other Conjuring movies are based on, the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Kind of you as a director, how do you approach the balance of crafting this ongoing cinematic version of these real people and balancing that with who they were in real life, these people that the viewers may not otherwise know if it weren't for the films?
Yeah, I think that they, it's a team effort in terms of, representing and shaping them. I do think that there are, in some ways they're beloved characters, in terms of like the real historical characters of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Mm-hmm. One of my biggest regrets is that I didn't get to meet Lorraine. Basically when I was hired on the movie, I was like, I cannot wait to meet Lorraine Warren, and we were scheduling it and got delayed, and then she passed away. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I've gotten to know Lorraine through Vera, from the very beginning, what I haven't even gotten into, and I'll just keep it quick, but, Patrick and Vera are freaking amazing. They are the best people, the best actors, and just great people, and so fun to work with, and so warm. Every day was like hanging out with, friends. What Vera told me is from the very beginning, she said she wanted to approach this like a biopic, that she wanted to be absolutely true to Lorraine Warren. And she says that, and I'm like, totally makes sense. She even went on to say how, the very beginning where she was, presenting the look, like we all accept, how Lorraine looks and dresses and, her hair and everything. She presented that to the producers and the team, and there was a lot of concern. And there was everyone was worried that it was too extreme, that it wasn't relatable. And she stood her ground, and she said, this is what Lorraine Warren looks like. And I love that. And I love the look of Lorraine. I feel like that is one of the things that makes it feel so authentic. And I think that, she was that kind of the first, she took that first stand in the very beginning of like, she's going to be true to these characters. But as the stories have evolved, as the movies have evolved, I think that, naturally, Vera, her spirit comes in, Patrick's spirit comes in, they become the movie versions of them, because they're beloved, but they're also controversial. There's some people who say they're charlatans. There's some people who are skeptics and really don't believe in the work that they were doing. And so I think that, and who's to say, we weren't there, but we're telling ultimately the Warren stories. And, I think that, I guess the quick answer is, it is, it's, there is no quick answer.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Oh man, Michael, it's such a pleasure. Like you're such a great guy. I'm so glad you could do this. And do you have a scary story you want to tell? I know we talked a little bit about one actually. Do you want to talk about that, or do you have something else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I would just say, for the podcast, what I told you before, because the question always comes up, like, what was the creepy thing that happened on set? And I think a lot of times it's like, and I think that, usually on, scary movie sets, there's always like something weird that happens. And, maybe there's an explanation, maybe not. And, there was weird stuff that happened on La Llorona that people had experienced. And, I wasn't a part of them. The one thing that we all experienced on Conjuring was during the exorcism. So the exorcism at the very end of the movie, there is true Conjuring form. We show the real people, the pictures, And we also play the actual recording of the exorcism of David Glatzel. This is a Catholic approved exorcism. And the basis of that, that scene. And before we shot it, we got into the dining room and we got all the actors together, and the majority of the actors that were gonna portray the scene. And I thought, okay, this is gonna be a really cool director move. I'm gonna play the actual recording of the exorcism just to get everyone in the in the zone. It's like that's probably what James would do. But I thought hey, this could be really powerful. I had heard the recording before, and you guys have heard it. It's super unsettling.
Yeah.
And I thought this will be a good way to set the mood. And we played it, and it's different than over the end credits, because the end credits you have the kind of that classic Joe Bishara score, which is so moody and stuff. But when you just play it and you just hear those voices and hear what David was going through, it's deeply unsettling. And especially when there's nothing there, it's just bare, and you have a bunch of people standing around and listening to it, and you're looking at these people, and it's that quiet moment. We're not quiet because we have the tape playing, but it's it's starting to kind of set into everyone. I think everyone, of course, is excited to make a movie and excited to be on set, and there's a lot of energy. But then when you hear that, who's to say what exactly happened there? But you cannot listen to that tape and deny that there was something horrific going on in that family. And I think that when we all listened to it, and we were looking around at each other, and there was people who were making eye contact with each other, and just it was starting to sink in. You could just feel the temperature in the room just shift. It was really unsettling and really powerful. And it's a feeling, it's hard to describe, because it's not the door slammed all of a sudden, boom, it was just something you could feel we're doing this. We're really recreating something that really had this left this emotional trauma on this family. And I thought it was very powerful. It was a very powerful moment, and I think other people who were there really, I don't know, it really left an impact on us.
Well, dude,
Yeah, I bet.
Michael, thank you so much
Seriously,
for joining.
such a blast talking with you.
Yeah, thank you guys. This has
honestly.
been so much fun.
And we both
It really
loved
has.
the movie. We encourage everyone to go check it out, but it's not like people aren't going to go see it. It's The Conjuring 3. Come on.
Come on, June 4th, I believe. June 4th, we're looking at HBO Max in
June 4th.
theaters.
People will not be disappointed. It was such a blast.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been a blast.
Yes.
Thank you.